notes are not being cooperative.
Hey, yeah. All right, cool.
Hold.
Yo, The Expanse is ridiculous.
Son,
Is it good?
did I lie to you? Did I take
Dude,
care of you?
dude.
Did I take care of you?
Dude.
I took care of you.
I'm only on episode 6 too.
It gets so much worse.
It's
so much worse.
Oh, it's bad.
No.
My God. No,
in a good way.
Worse in a good way.
Okay, got it.
Like
I really liked the first episode when it came out, and I was a little just okay on it. But
that's the thing. It's a true and proper sci-fi epic.
Yes, sir.
So it unfolds gradually. And it has layers upon layers, multiple stories moving. It like kind of like what Josh says. It has a lot of shades of Babylon 5, where like there's little pieces dropped in that didn't look like nothing in the first episode, and then episode 6, you're like, oh damn, you talked about that. Man. And so like it's not bad, man. And again, it's the pacing's a lot slower, and it's definitely on the Game of Thrones tip of you got to kind of go through the whole thing to really understand what the hell's going on. But the world that they create and just the pieces they give you every single time, it's all meaningful pieces. And so you're like, oh, this is interesting. And then you're like, huh. And it's like, huh. And then they also use Game of Thrones and Battlestar Galactica is like ending on really hard endings. Like there's like, and it's 100% together. There's no like one off or anything like that. This is like,
do you like this better than Altered Carbon?
Yeah.
I haven't seen Altered Carbon. I can tell you yes,
but I do like I like Altered Carbon for the same reason I like Expanse. Is like it's a new sci-fi. It's a different world you've never seen before, and they fully explore it. Like Altered Carbon was really good at that. You really got to see what this world was about, how it got there. You're really curious to see everything that's going on. Like that to me is a good sci-fi. When like you watch something, you're like, man, I want to.
I kind of like Altered Carbon, but the story was kind of meandering at a point, so I just kind of like fell off a bit.
Yeah. I think, and then like even with this, like you got to pay attention. Like if you miss like. Leah slept for like 5 seconds, and then she watched the next episode. She's like, "Wait, when did that happen?" And I'm like, "Dude, you fell asleep. You missed it."
Yeah.
But no, they did a good job, and also like, just like the way the world is presented is awesome.
Yes,
and like just on the base level, like Earth is now the UN, Mars is the military planet, and then there's like the asteroid belt is where everyone gets their resources, like water, ice, air and stuff. So those are the three like basically factions that are going on, and they're all and like Earth is like higher upper middle class, blah 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 blah, and then Mars is just the military, but everyone's envious of Earth because they still got sky and air and water. They can just walk outside, but they fucked it up because it's Earth. So everyone's looking at Earth like the dumbasses because like, yo, you guys had this beautiful planet and you gave it all the shit. We're over here in space, have to freaking ration our air, ration our water, and so it's really cool on that aspect of it. Like. This is not no Star Trek utopian type shit. Like, it's gritty. It shows like the levels of like classism and all that kind of stuff. And so, it's dude.
Right.
I've never seen before.
Bonkers.
I think it's
on Netflix
bonkers.
or who?
It's on Prime.
Okay.
It is bananas.
All right. After that glowing recommendation. Welcome everybody to the Table of Truth. This is your man Cam, the special edition. This is our monthly show called Blerdlines. We're going to be talking about geeky comic stuff and keep it in that realm, and that means comics and TV, comics and movies. Comics that are comic books themselves. And we're going to drop this once a month. It's going to be really fun. We're going to try to do a little bit of a book club. We're also going to review whatever movie came out and also TV shows. With me are my guests. First off, we have Josh.
Good day. AKA the Black Professor Xavier.
And we also have Cliff joining me.
What's up? Ready to get into this Captain Marvel spicy talk?
Slow your roll there, sir. And I asked you, why do you hate women? So yeah, we're first before we start it off, talk about this, like superhero fatigue. And do we have too much superhero crap out right now? That's a good thing. That's a good place to start first.
That's like, nonsense. We do not. That is absolute nonsense. Now? I don't think we're at the. First of all, I don't think we're at a saturation point. 1, 2. I think we were when there was a ratio of bad to good. Like the bad to good ratio is higher on the bad side, but pretty much everything is like the majority of stuff that's come out over the last, let's call it 10 years, it's been in a steady uptick qualitatively. So yeah. I would say absolutely not.
Cliff, what you think?
So I don't know if I'd call it oversaturation, but I do think we're at like an inflection point for superhero movies because we're being bombarded with so much. And even though DC has had their problems, it's like Aquaman was a huge hit. Obviously, Wonder Woman a few years back was a hit. As bad as Suicide Squad was, that was a hit. And apparently, Shazam early reviews are pretty good, and it's looking to shape out like that's going to be a pretty big hit. So we're having a little bit of DC, at least box office wise, potentially catching up to Marvel. So I say inflection point because, we could have a situation where DC and Marvel box office might start to be a little bit more on par. I think, thinking about, all right, Endgame is in April, right? And then is Far From Home in May?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah,
April, May. Actually, it might be June, July. It might still be on the July schedule.
Okay.
The Endgame got pushed up because it's supposed to be May, but now they changed to April. Okay. I think Spider-Man's in July. Shazam is like what, summertime too?
Is it sooner than that? No, or is it? I thought it was sooner than that. No.
No, I remember. But also too, you also have all the TV shows too. Like, so say for instance, like Umbrella Academy hit on Netflix, and like a lot of non-comic people were like, "Yo, what's this?" And they really enjoyed it. They thought it was quirky and cool, and it had like it's a different take, and it kind of to me it helped like push forward Netflix after they had to cut all the Marvel shows off. Right. And so it was kind of like, oh, they lost the Marvel shows. What are they going to do? They drop a Umbrella Academy, and everyone's like, oh, all right, they're going to be fine. And then they're just going to keep it moving.
So Shazam is, I just looked it up real quick. Shazam is April 5th.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Early
I didn't realize it was that close.
Yeah. I think on Netflix, it doesn't feel like fatigue their shows because they're so different from the movies. Like there's so much on a street level type of show that it doesn't feel the same as these massive superhero temples like Iron Man or the Avengers or Thor. So Punisher feels like a gritty soldier. I don't know if soldier procedural is the right word, but
that's an accurate description.
That's what it feels like. So it's definitely, he just happens to be a comic book character. Daredevil, even though he's a costume dude, it's kind of all about his personal struggles and the people around him and trying to, I guess, exist in this world as a righteous man, but, kicking ass. So I don't know. That doesn't feel like an oversaturation. I guess I sympathize partially with people that do feel that way because there's so much coming at us. But I mean, Marvel's formula is holding so tight that it's not feeling like I'm not feeling like, damn, I'm ready for Marvel movies to end.
Yeah, I think on a movie level, I could see the fatigue. On a TV show level, those are all doing pretty solid. Even with the announcement of like Arrow is going to be ending after this next season.
Okay, I'm good with that. Yeah, I'm good with that. They can go away.
But you have like Doom Patrol is doing really good. Titans was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Like Netflix is rolling out Jupiter's Legacy from Malar World, which is it's a pretty bonkers like story, and I could see it as a TV show. Basically, once Netflix bought Malar World, I knew that Netflix was gonna be fine because I think the most interesting thing to me then is like Umbrella Academy was almost like their test to see if they could pull something from comics Image
that wasn't mainstream.
That's not mainstream, aka like Guardians, and a bunch of misfits like Guardians. Put them on screen and then make you like them, and at the end, everyone's like, "Man, I like these characters." And so
Umbrella Academy is X-Men done right.
Yeah, if you want to put it that way.
I resent how correct that statement is. I really, really resent how accurate that statement is.
Yeah, they did a good job.
Beast in X-Men.
Yeah, they did a good job. I mean, and it's interesting because it's by the dude from My Chemical Romance,
which I did not know until you told me.
Yeah, he did it, and there's only 2 books. The second book to me is better than the first one, but it's definitely dope altogether. And the way they translated the book to the TV show was really good. You know, the book, just like all comics, is fantastical, and so they definitely took some of the pieces that I thought that were really, really cool and fleshed it out more. Like, say, for instance, Cha-Cha and Hazel in the book don't really have that big of a role, but they're just as impactful. And in the show, they actually make them they made a really good job. Like, Mary J. Blige surprised me.
Shout out to Mary J.
Wow.
I didn't
even realize. I did not realize that was her. That's how, like, until halfway through.
She was stopping in like you. No, she did a good job. I was like, I didn't even know she was in it.
Now it's kind of like Keanu Reeves. It's like, as long as you get her in the right role, it's like, if she can be her Cha-Cha, that was her name, right? Or is that
Cha-Cha?
Yeah.
So she's kind of like that's like 411 Mary that they put into Umbrella Academy. She's like this emotionless woman that is ready to kick people's ass, and you know.
No, it was
a good job.
And honestly, she, this is her second Netflix thing, because she did, what was this show? Was it Mudbound? I think it was something like that.
Yeah.
She was in that. So like, I think props to her, man. Whoever her booking agent is, like, literally, like, just, I like these type of roles where you just fly under the radar, but you do a solid job. That's how you get those consistency stuff. That's really, really dope.
That was some dope casting. Because she gotta pay alimony to her husband, so she needs the
money. There will be no women slander talk on this podcast, sir.
Equal opportunity alimony. Come on.
It was rock solid though, man. It was I was pleasantly surprised by the whole thing from start to finish.
Yeah, man. They had a lot of fun. And I think it showed the good shades of things to come, where Netflix drops so much stuff all the time. They're making all these deals, or they've really bolstered their foreign contingency of stuff that they're putting in. So there's tons of like Korean stuff and Chinese and Indian and even stuff from Israel and stuff like that. Yeah. Anime as well. Like, I actually did you guys see a trailer for Shadow?
Yes.
No. That looked interesting. It's like a South African, basically, to me, it looked like almost like a South African Punisher, honestly.
Or Luke Cage.
Or Luke Cage is kind of a thing. But it looked solid. It looked cool. I was like, I definitely want to check it out. So
I'm here for it.
I like the approach that Netflix is going, because they're just having a lot of fun and they're trying things, because they know they can't really compete in the suit and capes type situation. And I'm glad that they don't, and they just try to do their own thing.
Because they're not going to have $100+ million budgets,
Yeah,
I think that's something that keeps superhero movies or comic book movies fresh. Is if you get these indie books like Malar World or Umbrella Academy, you're not seeing the same imagery. I think that's a big thing. Is like the imagery of guys in capes and bright suits. As long as you get variety, I think that's going to keep the genre alive for a while.
Yeah.
So here's a question though. Do you think that Netflix will run into an oversaturation problem, because their approach is already sort of a boil the spaghetti and throw it against the wall and see what sticks, because they've got a ton of content. And I mean, to say not all of it is good is relative, because I feel like on the one hand, yes, there's some stuff that doesn't really hit, but the hits that hit are humongous. So
I don't
think. Do you think they'll? Good.
I don't think so, because Malar World is different from what people know as comic book movies. And if Image gets into selling some of their properties to Netflix to develop, all those things are so different than what we know as superhero / comic book movies, that you could have series happen that they go through the whole run, people love it, and then afterwards they find that it's based on a comic book.
Yeah, I think that's the thing too, is like a lot of the Millar World books are really, really cool, and his style of writing is basically like for TV and movies anyways. And so right when I heard they bought them out, like offhand, I already knew 5 books that could easily translate into a TV show or a movie. And so they really are gearing up for the eventual ending of their Disney contract, which takes all the Disney stuff properties away, and the Marvel properties away, and the Star Wars properties away. So I think it's going to be really interesting, because I think when Disney drops their streaming, takes all their crap out, and now Netflix has to be, okay, now we can only use our stuff. I think they'll be in a good situation where they're like, well, that's fine. Look at all the stuff that we've been doing. And I think that they've been taking some pretty good steps to prep for that now, and kind of just be like, hey, we like having the Disney stuff on our platform, but we don't need it,
What do you think that's going to do for Hulu, though? Or where do you think that's going to leave them?
I don't know. I think Hulu might still be the middle ground of TV shows. And I think that's where it's kind of been right now. Like right now, people go to Hulu and then they'll watch like, you know,
Grey's Anatomy,
Chopped, Seth Meyers, all the Food Network stuff, HGTV, you know, Desert Flippers and all that kind of crap. And then
House Hunters. It's like it's the streaming service you go to where you can watch shows with your girlfriend Saturday, Sunday morning.
That is very sexist of you, Cliff.
Once again, that's number 2, sir. That is number 2.
And true.
I'm saving all mine for Captain Marvel. I'm not gonna waste it early. But yeah, I think that's actually true because I mean, there's a lot of shows, you know, the ABCs, NBC, that kind of stuff that you can go on there and watch. Plus, honestly, not for nothing, Hulu's been bolstering up their anime as well, and like they're offering some really like some good like top notch like dropping right now animes now. So to a point where like I almost was like, oh man, I really don't need my Crunchyroll subscription because Hulu's doing a pretty good job, but there's still some really, really dope stuff on Crunchyroll that, you know, is like exclusive.
Yeah, jumping off what Cam said, because I have an anime list here of a bunch of classics that either I started years ago or just never got into. And, you know, I found a decent number of them on Hulu. Right now I'm on Rurouni Kenshin. So, there's a lot of good anime on there.
Son, you looked off camera like you got a wall of a
list. I do. I got a whiteboard with like the erasable marker that I listed all the anime I gotta watch. Kill La Kill.
Oh man, you haven't seen Fully Cooley or Kill La Kill?
No, I've seen Fully Cooley. It's just I never.
I was about to say.
Well, Kill La Kill out of the newer stuff is probably one of the. I would put that up more on the list because that shit is pretty dope. It's the same animators from Fully Cooley, but it's just like a bonkers freaking storyline. But
I tried Gurren Lagann, couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's not for it.
Same.
Yeah, it's you know what it is. It has the same. It's the same tenement of anime that you think of anime, but I think it pays off later on. But that first 5 to 6 is kind of like
it's rough.
Really I just finished Goblin Slayer. That shit was dope.
I'm gonna start that. That's
really good.
I got sidetracked by The Expanse.
Yeah, I can see it.
Completely sidetracked.
But I think, you know, and then there's also stuff that we don't watch. Like I haven't watched Deadly Class, which is on Sci-Fi. Yeah, and the comic is awesome. Actually, the comic is really, really dope. And I like Rick Remender. It's like he's one of my favorite writers. A lot of stuff that he does. So that's something I got to really catch up eventually. I still haven't done it yet, but that's another one on the list. But like it's kind of a good thing that they have. There's so many options now, and I think that's the one thing that Netflix will get to. Though they'll present the comic book stuff, not just superhero stuff. And I think that's that's what's going to separate them from the big Marvels and the DCs. And speaking of Marvel, did you guys watch Captain Marvel?
Segue, #segue.
Yeah.
You guys didn't know I'm a veteran at this.
I'm gonna sip some water while Cliff answers that question first.
Listen, first thing I'll say is
First things first.
It was good, but
so this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. So we're gonna do our Captain Marvel review. We're gonna split it up. The first half is going to be about the positives, and the second half is going to be about the negatives.
Because we have lots to say. And
we're purposely doing that because I think by separating it out, that'll be a little bit more constructive than freaking just ranting about it like I did after I watched it.
Yeah, because we'll be all over the place.
Yo, when I was talking to you about it, I was like, damn, Cam is in his bag on this.
Yeah, if y'all, man, people watching this, if you saw our chat, oh my God. It was just all over the place. All over the place. It was terrible.
But before we get to the negatives, let's start positive.
Yes.
All right. So Captain Marvel came out this past weekend, made a shitload of money, almost $500 million. I think worldwide, 160 in America, something. Yeah, super dope. And starring Academy Award winner Brie Larson.
True.
Wait, did Sam Jack have an award? Nah.
Did he win one?
He might have.
That's a good question.
Well, we have the Googles.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, it's Brie Larson. You got Sam Jack. You got Jude Law. Came out this weekend. Set in the 90s. They had a lot of fun with that. That's one thing I would say. Like the corniness of the plugs of the 90s was funny, and it was corny, but it still was funny. They're just like, oh, I need a communication device. Where do I go? Point. Radio Shack. Ha 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 ha. So
I need to communicate with someone. How do I do that? Oh, a two-way pager.
Yeah. So I thought that it was funny, and it kind of made it, for the 90s kids out there, we all laughed at all the 90s jokes, which is cool.
I was not a child in the 90s. I was a grown man. Thank you. Old man in the group.
But in general, though, I like the Kree and the Skrulls. I thought they were cool. I thought the designs were awesome. The world they built was cool. They did a really good job of kind of explaining Supreme Intelligence. I thought not in the comics, it's kind of more of a faceless blob of thingy, and they kind of just let it be more.
That's probably the best.
Trillion tentacles.
Yeah, that was cool.
Agreed.
I like that they they showed a lot more of the Kree and just kind of their world and what how advanced they were and what they were doing. That showed that was kind of cool to kind of set that. I like that the Skrulls, the way they were really dope, like how they transformed, even like their ships and stuff like that. That was cool.
Mm-hmm.
On the Captain Marvel herself's part, I thought that she fit with the continuity of the group. So her and the cast members, it actually worked. I'm not going to say that she was the best part of it, but she didn't like distract out of that.
Right.
But I thought the whole cast around it, like it was cool. A nice little Coulson cameo that was awesome.
Definitely. And his hair.
And his
hair was amazing.
His hair is on point. Trying to think what else in my pot. Oh, what's her name? Lashana
Lynch.
Yeah, she killed it. She was awesome.
Agreed.
I like
her. Probably had one of the best moment in the movie.
Yeah, definitely. I thought that was really cool for them to. Their interactions was really cool, and she was a true blue friend in terms of how the interactions were. And I thought that the way they treated her and Monica Rambeau in the context of Captain Marvel was really, really dope. And I thought that was like, I was really curious to see how they were going to do it, and I thought they did a really good job.
Yes.
So, Josh, you mind if I listen?
Oh, yeah.
I have a list, so please.
So, I think off the bat, probably the first 10 to 15 minutes, I think they did a really good job setting up the world initially and doing their kind of time jump thing where we're finding out with her about her past and trying to piece it together. So I think that was done really good. I think the initial setup of her relationship with Jor Kim. Can you give me the name of Jude Law's character? Jor or something?
Yeah.
John Rogg.
Yeah, John Rogg.
Yeah. I mean, we all knew at the beginning of the movie he was going to be a bad guy. There was no mystery about that. At some point later, that guy. But I think their relationship was kind of cool off the bat. I think when they set it up where she's kind of like she knows her powers, but she's kind of holding them back because he keeps telling her to, but then also I think she has like an inhibitor in her neck to keep her from going crazy. I think that was good because it gave us some type of parameters about what she could and couldn't do, right? Which I'm not gonna go into the negatives, but just that is what it is. But then also going on later in the movie, and then her early relationship with Nick Fury and the kind of Lethal Weapon vibe that it had, I thought that was really cool. That was one of the best parts of the movie. Surprisingly, amazing chemistry. I thought that again, Lashana Lynch did a really good job. She actually gave emotional weight to the movie that if it wasn't for her, it wouldn't be there. There would not be any emotional weight. They did catch me off guard with the whole Skrulls switching to the good guys thing. At first, I was waiting for the Skrulls to flip it on them and be like, haha, we're just kidding. We're actually the bad guys. But then it didn't never happen. And when it didn't happen, I was like, oh, that's cool. I dig that. That's actually really smart.
Yeah, that was different.
So yeah, I think those were.
Yeah, that was definitely different, and I thought they did a good job of doing that aspect of it.
That was fine. And then
Oh, you're breaking up a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go.
Now we can, yeah.
Okay. The dude that was the main Skrull, Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah.
He was really good.
He was awesome.
He saved it in terms of like a character. He actually had a character arc. Out of the many characters in the movie, he was the one that had probably the best character arc. Even though when you think back to it, he was always doing good or trying to work to good. It's just that they set him up to be the bad guy and then his change later. So yeah.
Yeah, nah, he was dope, man. He's definitely a bright spot.
He
Like,
was great. Yeah.
yeah, I thought he really killed. He killed it to a point where I was just like, I mean, I like him as an actor, and he's really funny. I had previously saw him in Robin Hood, and he was over the top stupid in it, but he totally killed it, dude. Josh, go ahead. What? Tell him why you mad. I'm just kidding.
No.
Positives only.
Positives first. I thought that it seemed to mostly know where it was going and what it was trying to accomplish. There's a lot of negative criticism about Brie Larson's delivery. I personally liked it because she's a no-nonsense soldier. She's a warrior, so if this was a dude and he was emotionless, cough Tom Cruise, cough Arnold Schwarzenegger. If it was a dude, we wouldn't be having that discussion. So she did what you see people doing when they're trained military people. The emotion kind of shuts off and they kind of just go about the business of the business. So I thought that was great. I thought just in general, her portrayal of a soldier was pretty solid. What else? The 90s thing at times was a little overkill, but for the most part was dope. And Cam, I promised a mutual friend of ours, Designer Made a Dork on IG, shout out, that I was gonna hit on some points that she and I talked about. We stayed up until like 2:00 in the morning texting each other. And I agree with all of these, so it's not like I'm just parroting what she said. So she felt, and this is probably going to create a third sort of lane for the discussion, but she also felt that this was better than Wonder Woman in terms of a woman sort of being self-determining and sort of, like there was no point where she was led by the men in the movie. They were all there as guides. She felt that she felt that it was, there was no Chris Pine sort of being like, well, no, we have to do this way. Everybody kind of got out of her way and sort of just let her rock. Like, all right, we're following you. Where are we going? All right, cool, no problem. And to be fair, that is not something that you see in a lot of female-led films, particularly female-led action films.
Let me stop you there. It's woman-led. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you for the correction. A woman-led film. Woman. Let's see, what else did she? She felt, by contrast, she felt that Wonder Woman sort of pivoted around the male characters as opposed to the opposite. The men sort of pivoting around her and being like, oh, so this is what we're doing, and then going and doing that. Let's see. Yeah, and to expand on that a little bit, I feel like, these guys were all guides. Like, they were there to assist her. They were literally supporting actors who were there to sort of help her accomplish her mission, and not guys who were basically like, okay, woman, this is what we're going to do. And then she goes off and does it, but, executes their plan as opposed to sort of, like I said, being sort of self-determined and, execute, coming up with a plan. I mean, she had no idea what was going on through half the movie, but she led the investigation. She found all the clues. She decided where, what, when, how, and why.
She was the badass of the flick.
Yes, but a little bit more nuanced than that. She was the decision maker.
What's it called? The other thing that was cool was the aspect of like the clues that were kind of like unraveled as they went. Like it didn't. I thought the story and the pacing was fine, and the plot, in those aspects. So all the parts that Marvel does really well: story, pacing, plot, get you where you need to go. Cool. I thought those are all awesome.
The Marvel formula.
The Marvel formula worked fine. Sure. And I think that the supporting cast in general was awesome. We also saw Sam Jack. He basically was playing his character from Long Kiss Goodnight. If you have never watched that movie, you need to go watch it. It's an underrated classic just in the fact that he's hilarious. But Gina Davis also was awesome in that movie. And so I think that aspect of it was good. So it kind of led the plot to keep it moving. Now let's go to the negatives.
So on that end, can I push back a little bit against what Josh said in terms of Brie Larson? For me, I didn't that much care for her Captain Marvel.
Okay.
And it's not her fault. I think that she was not written very well.
Wow. Okay.
I think that the movie Captain Marvel got unfortunately placed so close to Endgame that maybe they couldn't devote the time to developing her character the way that she needed to be. In my opinion, she had little to no character development. She was just the same throughout the whole movie, in my opinion.
Interesting.
The only way she wasn't the same was just the fact of her realizing what her origin was. I think that was the only point where she had any type of development. Other than that, she was just kind of the same. And I saw people making the point that, you know, she's playing a cocky pilot like a lot of guys do. I think that she was playing the caricature of a male cocky pilot, and that's what my problem was.
And I think that comes to my disappointment. So before I even start, one, I don't like Captain Marvel Carol Danvers. I think she's a whack ass character. She is not cool. She is not cool.
Why are you mad?
Yo, she is not cool in the comics. They've rebooted. They've literally rebooted her book at least 5 times within the last 10 years. The last really good story, Carol Danvers centered story, was Avengers Infinity, which was really good, and it made
excellent.
What made it made perfect sense. It was set in space. It was the Avengers in space, and it was with a big cosmic catastrophe
and
thing.
She ran things
100%, and it was really dope. And that was the first time I was like, "Yo, she is really dope." And this is me as a comic book nerd going back to the Warbird times and going back to those times. So with all the reading I've read, and again, I worked at Marvel, just for disclosure, for 2 years, and she is very, very beloved. From the employee standpoint, like they really, from an employee standpoint, a lot of people really wants this to be their Wonder Woman, and it was going to be on money wise. But in terms of and so because of that, it made me actually go back and really reread Captain Marvel stuff with a fresh set of eyes. But every time I kept going back, I'm like, yo, she's really boring. She's very stale. There's really nothing about her. I don't really, there's not I like Mockingbird. I like other characters there in the MU, Black Widow, but Carol Danvers for me has always just been boring. There's really nothing to her that gives me that thing that, oh, you're really a badass. You quote unquote deserve to be a top 3 or whatever that's going to mean.
How did you feel about her in Secret Invasion? Because I thought she was central and she was great.
She was central and she was solid. And again, it just like she was there because they needed to throw her in there, as opposed to she was there.
I think so.
Yeah, I just there's. Again, maybe I have to go read it again, but one of the things I kept looking for is usually we can even do a worse, Civil War II was fucking horrible.
She was awful, and I don't read much Captain Marvel, but Civil War II, she was awful.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bad story to begin with, but it just her character, the way they pivoted her as being that, it just didn't work.
It's like I know many things about that made no sense.
I know Carol Danvers is smarter than this.
Exactly. There you go. And I think that's my point. I think I almost expect better. If she is supposed to be a Wonder Woman type of level, there's a certain level of gravitas that Wonder Woman has, whether you read a comic book of hers or not. But if you pick up a comic and you read Wonder Woman, you're like, oh, Amazon Queen. Yep, I'm with it. But you pick up Captain Marvel, you're like, okay, B-level character, kind of, oh, you're an Avenger. You're a leader? Really? So anyways, I have all the extra baggage, and then I watch Captain Marvel. So I'm watching Captain Marvel with the intent to be...
You're tainted.
No, I actually want it to be better, because it would be something like, hey, I don't like this character. You guys got to convince me. And I walk in, I'm like, oh, cool, that dope. Now I'm being convinced. But instead, it was just like, oh man, are you kidding me, dude? It's like some of the dialogue was just so cringeworthy, and
that's another point. That's a good point right there, because a lot of the dialogue isn't really for developing the story or deepening the story.
Yeah.
It's like this fall to us that, hey, this is our message. You know what I mean? Instead of it just flowing.
Yeah,
Wonder Woman flowed. The dialogue flowed. It was weaved into the narrative, but also weaved into the larger idea about female empowerment or women empowerment.
Yeah.
But it was just so, the message was so ham-fisted in Captain Marvel. But
it's just like a wink, wink, and a nudge, nudge every 2 seconds. I'm like, dude, we know she's a badass. We know that this is a quote unquote girl power movie. That's awesome. But like, you beating me over the head with it repeatedly. It was just like, dude, are you serious? And so my thing was like, every dude was either bumbling, incompetent, or toxic. And that was like of literally every dude that was in the film. Now, to a good point, I think Dorka also brought this up. And, I think it was Dorka that was saying that, like, in a Bond movie, you have all these like badass women spies, and they're like, all of a sudden now they're damsel in distress, like they don't know how to be a spy. So that's a very valid and actual great comparison. But it seemed like to me for Captain Marvel, it was like, okay, let's think of everything that dudes do in movies against women. Let's do the exact opposite, but then crank it up to 100.
Well, I think so. I think two things. One, you're absolutely right. I think that they definitely did flip that trope on its ear. I think it could have been to better effect. I think it was a little bit more hardcore because seeing Sam Jackson is just this hapless dude, this hapless SHIELD agent, which should not go hand in hand.
Yeah.
That was a lot.
To be honest, his comedic beats were probably the best of the movie. Sure. And the parts with him and Cap Marvel were really good parts of the movie. Sure. However, back to it for me, for Brie Larson, like, she was just mad stale. Like, she was like, kind of like what Cliff said, she was playing a caricature of a cocky pilot. And I was like, there's a point of it where I'm just like, even her jokes are kind of flying flat. Now, that's just only for me, because again, one thing I also recognize as well, which I'm glad I did watch the movie, is because I also realized that this movie is not necessarily for me. And that's me as a male, a comic book geek of over 30 years watching this movie. Yeah, and so that's what you got to. So you got to accept that aspect, and to that point, I went with my girlfriend, and she totally loved it. Every quip that she had, every sarcasm, every little thing, she was on it. She laughed at every part. She loved that she was a badass, the way she was acting, and all that kind of stuff. Everything, and that was a good point for me to realize, okay, this movie was not necessarily for me specifically. This is
and that's another thing that I was wondering. It was like, even though objectively, as moviegoers and fans of comic books, that we can pick out all these things that are glaringly wrong. At the end of the day, does how women feel coming out of that movie empowered and strengthened and emotional, does that mean more than objectively how we can pick out everything that's wrong with it?
Yeah. I say yes. Yep. And to answer that, I say yes, because it's the same way we felt about coming out of Black Panther. Like, you can't have no one white could come to you and tell you that movie was subpar. No one, like, because the backlash would be more like, you can't, like, there's nothing there are some substantive issues with Black Panther. We all three of us have discussed it ad nauseum at this point from February to now, that there were some issues, but those issues didn't by any stretch of the imagination overshadow how good that film was. Just from a storytelling standpoint, from an acting standpoint, from a directorial standpoint, how it weaves into MCU but sort of stands on its own. I think, for me, I feel like my issues with Captain Marvel are outside of Brie Larson. Her performance could have been a little better, but I think the portrayal of and how they positioned the character, and as Dorka put it, whereas Wonder Woman had her pivoting around men, the men were definitely pivoting around her. I agree it was a little ham-fisted at times, but I think it was, personally, I think it was necessary. That's how much that, as thinking from the standpoint of how we see Black people portrayed in films, thinking about how women see these characters portrayed in films, they might have needed to go a little hard on that. You know what I mean? It might have needed to be a little hardcore, so that it stands out and it's clear that. But
here, let me say this though, in terms of how I feel that Marvel thinks. It's like, Marvel is aware of the temperature that's going on in society right now, and is extremely smart on their part. So on one level, we can say that they did it overtly because that's what was needed. But on another level, we can say that, it's market tested that if they do these things overtly, they're going to have women leaving the theater in these emotional highs to come back a second weekend to make sure that box office goes near $1 billion. And that's cynical on my part, but
no, it's not, because I did the same thing. I had the same thought process with BP.
Yeah,
and did the same thing with Black Panther.
And also, too, the other thing was, I think for Captain Marvel, I think from again, me just not liking the character and then not enjoying the movie was because to me, it was it was kind of to say, telling me she's a badass, but didn't show me. Like I did not believe any of it, and like maybe close to the part where she was fighting Ronin and she destroyed one of the ships. I was like, oh, dope, she has some OP powers. But like you're trying to convince me that she's like better than the Hulk, and I'm like, there's nothing in this movie that even shows even remotely that. And then when an Endgame comes, and I already have some spoilers from that, just some other stuff, but it's like it's making me not really in the believable aspect of it. So it's like
that goes back to the character development part of it. It's like, in the beginning of the movie, she was like super hardcore badass. At the end of the movie, she's super hardcore badass. It was like, where are the human traits of some vulnerability, some not being sure of yourself? And it's like, maybe on some level they didn't want to show that because they would feel that that's showing a woman to be weak, but no, it's just showing a woman to be human. And that was
let me jump in there. If this were a man, and I'm not going the you're a sexist route, but if this were a man, we wouldn't be making these statements because the dude's not going to show any Arnold Schwarzenegger does not show vulnerability. Mark Wahlberg does not show vulnerability in those types of roles. If it were a man, we wouldn't be having that discussion.
And now, what I mean? Now, but if you put Captain Marvel in the context,
you're absolutely right. But the thing is that.
Oh, sorry. If you put Captain Marvel, if you put Captain Marvel in that context, 100%. If you put Captain Marvel in the context of the last 5 years or even 10 years, then it's like, okay. And I was asking other people this question. I was like, is Captain Marvel better than Ant-Man? And I'm like, I can't say it is. Because I think
it's on par.
I think the character development in Ant-Man was better in terms of like showing Scott Lang from the beginning all the way to the end. Now, the better comparison would probably be an Iron Man, because she's supposed to be a Captain America, an Iron Man type of person, like the top thing. Like in even in that respect, I can't really say the same. So you are correct in the same asking. You're like, right. If this was a dude, we would have been like, oh, he's a cocky dude. He's one note. He's kind of boring, but we don't really care. And we would have glossed over.
You're right. Movies have we watched that sold? No, you're absolutely right, Josh. The difference I would say with Arnold Schwarzenegger is like he's a way worse actor overall than Brie Larson is. we know Brie Larson has the ability. That's the thing. If Brie Larson was a bad actress, I'd be like, oh, Josh, you're absolutely right.
Okay, so let's compare her against Tom Cruise.
Okay, so all right, so Tom Cruise. I think so. I would say in Mission Impossible more recently, we've had Ethan Hunt where he's not 100% sure of what he's doing because he's been let down so many times throughout the years. So, maybe that's just a result of being a little bit more emotional depth in Ethan Hunt than we are in Captain Marvel. And we're talking about I haven't seen the movie in so long that I'm not even sure how to make that comparison. But I get what you're saying. But those movies, for me, when I've seen the guy is cocky with no type of character depth, I personally haven't liked those movies. Unless you're talking about Chuck Norris and it's just an absolute joke, then I haven't really enjoyed those movies.
Well, and even for the Tom Cruise in terms of Mission Impossible, it took a lot of movies for him to get to the point that he's at now, where it's like they show Ethan Hunt as a full human, where the first couple of them was just very like, I'm dope, this is what I do, just listen to that.
But that's my point. I feel like that franchise would not have survived without that foundation, at least.
Yeah, no, you're a good point.
I mean? Like he's kind of one when it doesn't require much of him, he's as one note a human being as you'll ever find. On in film, and it works. Like it works, and because he's he's the soldiery, man. And think about every male in a lead role in a film, where they're a spy or they're an assassin, or they're a military type.
Like the very first Mission Impossible in '93 with Tom Cruise. In that point, it was similar to Captain Marvel, where he didn't know who to trust because basically. All of his comrades had been killed, and he'd been, I think, disavowed, and he was kind of lost in the sauce. And you could see that anger and emotion about what the hell do I do? Who do I trust?
Aside from
Captain Marvel, we didn't really get that. She was just like, I'm sure about everything all the way through. I just don't know who I am.
But let's keep it real though. There's only one scene where Ethan Hunt emotes in the first one, and that's when he's in the coming from what he thinks is the coming from the cold meeting with I forget his handler's name.
Yeah, John Voight or whatever.
Yeah,
Yep.
but after that,
I mean, also
he's
after
switched on, son. He's completely
all his comrades get killed. Remember in the beginning when what's his name?
Sure,
Mighty Duck coach he kills in the elevator, and
sure,
he's just like,
yeah, that shit was crazy actually. I forgot.
But my issues to sort of pivot around all of this.
Overall, you're right though. Men get way more leeway for being emotional.
Yeah. So, but my issues with the film more stem from like I was able to sort of put it in perspective. Yes, her delivery was very one note, but she's a soldier, so that sort of didn't really, in that context, it didn't really bother me as much. What did bother me was the characterization of the Skrulls. Now, there's talk that maybe there may be another faction of the Skrulls later on down the line. They may whatever. I'm cool with all of that if they decide to make the Skrulls the jerks and bad guys that we know them to be.
Yeah.
But I can only deal with what's in front of me right now.
And they try to play him off of some refugee type immigrant type stuff.
Like super duper refugee, sympathetic, and Talos. I've been calling this man Talos for like since I was 10 years old. So it's hard for me to now switch over and say Talos. So Talos is a jerk. He's a dick. He's a dick. And he really wasn't like, he was sympathetic. I wanted Ben Mendelsohn like we got in Rogue One. Just an irascible jerk.
Yep.
Where like everything that comes out of his mouth is just anti the good guys.
Yeah.
And you really don't like. I walked away from Rogue One not liking director Krennic at all.
Yeah.
Because he's a bad guy. He's a bad guy.
Yeah.
He's anti the good guys.
And I think that's the part that I think again, just look at it from as a movie, not as a statement. Like those are those parts that was really just getting me annoying because it was just kind of like, yo, you guys are really trying to tell me that the Skrulls are some immigrant refugees from the all-powerful mighty empire, and I was just like, I'm not buying it. Man.
That didn't bother me, and initially I thought it would, but to make it kind of like I guess an allegory for what's going on today, because they also said that we both made mistakes on each side of this war, on the Kree-Skrull war, so it's maybe the audience goers that haven't been steeped in 50 years of Marvel history don't realize how bad the Skrulls are, but as fans of Marvel, we know that at some point in the future there could be a secret invasion.
Exactly. And I think
they could just flip it right back around.
But again, dealing with what we have in front of us, it feels like they wasted those characters completely. Because Talos is that dude. Like he's an imperialist. He's Skrulls forever. Yeah, and anything to advance their cause.
Yeah,
but Talos could have just like made these alliances just because it's what he needed to do at the time. As a military tactician.
And to bring it back to the whole thing, I think they really glossed over the Kree-Skrull war in a way that was just like it's something that's like a really big pivotal part in the Marvel like universe, and they're just kind of like, there was a war, Kree won, Skrulls are on the run, that's it. I was like, damn, that's it. Like there's and to be fair, like you said, there's we can only judge what's in front of us. We don't know what the thing. There was already rumors talking about the Secret Invasion might be the third act, third way, whatever. So maybe they get to expand on it, blah 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 blah. But like I thought it was I thought it was almost a waste of quote unquote bad guys to kind of just do it the way they did. And I think sometimes and it was. In the reveal too, with because the Kree are always dicks. They've always been dicks. This is what it is. So that part wasn't a stretch. And then, but when I saw the Skrull as being like the refugees, I was like, really? Like these dudes are really fucked up.
Talking about a wasted moment, the Tesseract did not need to be in this movie.
Nah, at all.
That was ridiculous.
Okay, that's a fair statement.
I mean, it worked. Air quotes.
I guess.
Right.
But there was not like. When when I saw it, I was like, "Oh, cool," but I didn't "Oh."
Whereas, right. The Tesseract should have been a holy crap moment. For
sure. Exactly. And I think that was it. It didn't hit as hard as I think the writers wanted it to, and I think that that just kind of just compounded on the luck. Like I think, and overall, I would say my displeasures with the movie was more the writing than anything else, and I think that they went ham on the overly like, you know, she's a badass woman thing, and to the point of just ad nauseum. But then like even just on the nerdy level from thing, like the misuse of the scrolls, the Tesseract just being there just for no reason.
Yeah.
Like and you know, it would have been
the bumbling of the men definitely.
Yeah, like even Sam Jack saved
it
though. Sam Jack did
would
save it.
Would you say, Josh, the bubbling of the what?
The bumbling men definitely subtracted from it a little bit. Like, I think I get where they were going, and I appreciate why they did it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sit quite the same way that it does for me as it does with everybody else. That said, I think that it's still subtracted. I think it would have served better, personally speaking, if it was less bumbling men and more like, these guys are already they're already becoming who they're supposed to be. Coulson is already that dude. Sam Jackson is on the way to being that dude. And
you know, the funny thing
so you have these, hold
on.
on. Let me finish. And so, you know, you have the future director of S.H.I.E.L.D., the two future directors of S.H.I.E.L.D., both being like the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents that got them where they wound up in their careers. And then here comes Carol Danvers, and she's among peers. That to me would have worked better than, you know, almost the you know, the okay, Carol, let's go.
Yeah. And I think
you're right. It's just that because I think you have so little time to tell these stories, and you have so many things that you're trying to accomplish, that the precedent of making sure that she's perceived as a strong woman takes over everything. And the funny thing is, the take that you had, Josh, I've seen some articles that there are the exact opposite, that she was throughout the movie always came by a man that was like telling her what to do and her following through.
Yeah, I don't see that.
Okay,
I don't see that. Because the one guy that did do that was Jude Law, and she eventually shook loose of that. But they made a point of separating them. Like, it was established at the beginning of the movie, he's her commanding officer. He tells her what to do. It's clear that he's pulling the strings and sort of manipulating the puppet marionette. And as soon as they give you that, they take it away. And she's left out in the wild. She has no idea what's going on, where she is, who she is, and she goes about investigating that pretty expertly with only guide support from the men around her.
And I think
that to me worked.
And I think with that respect, I think the handling of Jude Law's character worked well with her in that aspect. Like that's the only arc of the story that I saw. Like I saw it. Like at the beginning, she was like, this is the person I'm learning from. He's definitely a badass, but I know I'm powerful in it, but I gotta get there. But then by the end of the movie, she's like, no, I'm better than you. I can go do stuff. You need to tell these dudes what's what. I'm coming for them. So like that was the only arc of the whole movie that I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this perfectly. But then anything else, like you said, if Carol Danvers was amongst peers with Coulson and Sam Jack, and then they're all on the same equal level,
and then she's doing the same thing,
and she's wilding out like that, then it'd be like, oh, she's a badass. But instead, they were just kind of like, she's kind of a badass, but these dudes are really incompetent. Okay, now she's even more of a badass. And I was like, damn, it didn't make no sense, and this is not even why they got to make the dudes all bad thing. It was just kind of like, it almost was didn't make sense. Like I was like, yo, it would have actually been better for Sam Jack to be freaking a Nick Fury badass and then get sunned by Captain Marvel. And I'd have been like, oh, you just got sunned, and he's like, yeah, I got sunned. That's
you're right, Cam. But a lot of that stuff takes a back seat to like, yo,
yeah, you're right.
You have to make sure that we're showing Carol Danvers as a badass. And like, I think in the regular world, it's going to work out a lot differently. There's going to be a lot more gray area in terms of the back and forth between people, who's leading, who's following, how sometimes that switches back. It's a lot more complicated, but you know, there's an agenda to make sure that things are perceived in a certain way, and that's fine, because you know, maybe that's just what these times in the movie calls for.
Yeah, no, you're right.
At the end of the day, it absolutely calls for that, and I think the fact that there are women that I know who are at the minimum at least as well versed in terms of what makes a quote unquote good film as the three of us and the rest of our extended crew, the fact that they're like, yo, this was brilliant. This was brilliantly done. This was handled properly. To me says, at least for me, that there's a little bit more work that I need to do, because I know that there are things that I don't see that they saw, that they were like, nah, son, you don't even understand. This is a well done film.
But you know, I
And
didn't even. Oh, sorry. You guys finish, Josh?
well, just to wrap up and say, like I said, I feel like there are things that there's some adjustments to my eyesight that I may need to make as a man, that so that my vision comes closer in line to theirs, the same way that there were white people who were like, I don't get the big deal. Why are you guys losing your minds over Black Panther? And our response, generally speaking, was, then it wasn't for you. Shut up.
But you know what, Josh? I think it's both and. It's not necessarily either or. Either you have the sight or you don't. It's like on one level, it's like we can objectively critique the film based on,
Oh,
being
sure.
comic fans and film fans. And it's like, is there something I'm not seeing that the women are seeing that it makes the film better than it is? Personally, I don't think so. Just on the level of, there's a level that women are going to relate to this that we're just never going to understand because we're not women. We can sympathize with what they're going through and how they feel,
and
but we can never get to that level. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So on a certain level, it's like I can judge that and totally have my views on it, but still giving it a B minus, but being okay with that woman, with the woman's grading of an A plus because of what it does for her.
Yeah, exactly. And to bring it back, to kind of bringing it back, is like, with the Black Panther comparison as well. Like, we can say, yo, Black Panther first 2 acts were amazing. The third act, ooh, not so good, and be okay with saying that. And I think for me, I think I just didn't like. I think like Captain Marvel was like, I think what it was like, I see what you're doing. And like that's what got to me, was just like made it more cringeworthy. Where it's like, if you're gonna do all these things, and someone asks us like, okay, well, name another movie that is that's woman led, whatever. And I was just like, oh, okay. Like I said, Long Kiss Goodnight. Salt actually was really good. There's all these different movies where like, and again, it had the same level of what they're looking for and same impact, but just in a different way. However, bringing it back to the Marvel aspect of it, now that Marvel is for everyone now. It's not just us. It just used to be the nerds. Now we have to let it go. It's everyone now. Right. The impact of it is just as the same level of the impact of with Black Panther, or
agreed.
Like someone said about Crazy Rich Asians, aka Yellow Panther. But that same level of seeing yourself on screen in a way that is inspirational and inspiring and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so on that respect, that's part we can accept that, and we can shut up and listen when they say that, but then also be like, but I think
listen to
constructively, and objectively, these things are what subtract from it as a film. Not as a women's, not because it's a woman, not because it's anything else, except that this is the bar that's been established for Marvel films, and in these specific categories, it falls a little short.
Yeah, and I think the what they did well will pay dividends on going on forward, because much like Black Panther, mm-hmm. and with Wonder Woman, like, it will help usher in those copycats, and hopefully that will help it even more.
Repetition will create better films as time passes.
Yeah, Wonder Woman helped with the shining a light on more women directors. Mm-hmm. Black Panther shined a light on mining more African American IPs for different like stories and that kind of stuff. Sure. So, and those aspects and those positivities realms, awesome. And then also too, like, again, the movie's not for us. We're 3 Black men in our 30s, 40s, and that's just not a movie for us. And we can be okay with that and still watch it, and whether we enjoy it or not, and still understand why it has a cultural impact. And I think that at the end of the day is the part that is like, it's a respect part, where it's like, I still respect the film.
Agreed.
It's just I could just say I don't like it, and and articulate why without being offensive or just being like, oh, I'm accommodating.
100%. You think you can?
Yeah.
Right.
When these words come back to haunt me when I run for Senate in 2030, just want to let everybody know I love women. But I think in that respect, that would be my thing. And like, I watched it with my girlfriend. She completely loved it. She had so much fun. She laughed at every joke, every part that she was snippy or snide to another dude, or sunned a guy or threw a guy into a wall. Like, she loved all of it. And she's not a comic book fan. She watches most Marvel movies, but not every one of them. And so for that audience, and then that's who they were actually going for, they 100% knocked out the park. They deserve all the monies that they're getting for it, and it makes perfect sense.
something just popped into my head about Infinity. Even as much as you and I loved Infinity, um, even Infinity had sort of a bumbling male component to it, because Captain America was just a complete buffoon most of that arc. Captain America. So basically Infinity is sort of an interstellar thing, and so basically everybody agrees, we need to see control of this to Carol, because this is her department, this is her.
Got it.
She knows everything about space stuff, and we're just here, so we're gonna be here to support. So Cap has been the perennial eternal leader of the Avengers, but even he was like, yep, got back off. And so what they did was, instead of, like, there were certain things where, like, it was almost like what should have happened was Carol should have been the Picard to Captain America's Riker in that scenario. He should have been the second officer. And there were far too many times where she tried to confab with Cap, and he was like, I don't know what to do. Instead of him being like a strong support role for her, it was just all up to her, which was dope. And they wrote it brilliantly. Like, she was just a G throughout the whole thing, and made some straight power moves and crazy plays, and use the team in ways that you hadn't seen them used before. And she just, from top to bottom, just ran it. But the one problem that I had with it, and it's the only problem I had with it, was every time that she tried to, do the Picard Riker confab, like, these fools are bugging out. What you think we should do? I don't know, Carol. Okay, all right. So this is what we're gonna do then. That's kind of how it wound up being every single time.
And that's my thing. Somebody doesn't have to be lesser than for another person to be equal.
Yeah.
In an ideal world, yes, but sometimes it plays out.
And I think that's the the black sidekicks is something that I noticed as well, where it was like, I thought they did a good job of treating that, because usually, there's always the black sidekick that's clearly better than the main character, but then they're the sidekick, so they're not going to do much. And I thought that the Maria Rambeau wasn't that, which was awesome. I think they handled her. I think they handled her really, really well.
Yes,
they set it up really dope. They set it really good with Monica Rambeau being like 10 years old in 1990. Yep. That means perfect. Now she'll be in almost 40. That shit worked out well.
Yep, I seriously thought that Monica was gonna be like, hey, look, it's Kid Monica. All right, bye. And she was she lent the film, like Cliff was saying, there was a lot of weight that was sort of missing in the film, that her character lent it heavily. Like, her relationship with Auntie Carol, and just the kid's a star. First of all, she was brilliant. Every scene that she was in, she lit up the screen. But yeah, I think they handled the idea of that character being out there and being in the Marvel universe as a future hero, that was seated perfectly.
Yeah, I thought that was dope. And I think it's a good thing where now the non-comic book fan can be like, oh, who's Monica Rambeau? And that I'm glad for that. That's going to be like super, super dope. Because
the foreshadowing definitely hit you over the head. We're like, you don't know, I could be somebody who does something later on, maybe.
So to wrap it up, like, where does this fall? Two things. One, where does it fall in the origin stories of the other movies? And two, where does it fall in the MCU as a whole, being a movie?
For me, I think it falls somewhere around Doctor Strange, Ant-Man, maybe. I have it like, I would say a little bit below Ant-Man, maybe equal to Doctor Strange. I think it's right there. So
I would say tied with Ant-Man, probably above Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I would say the same. I think it's above Doctor Strange, but I think it's a little bit below Ant-Man. But I think in that realm, and honestly, the best, like, to me, sadly, the best part of the movie was the cutscene, which was not directed by the people that directed it.
I hated the cutscene.
But it was like, dude, you could tell it wasn't directed by the people that made Captain Marvel. Two, it was like super ridiculously quick and dumb, but I was like, oh, okay, I know what you guys are doing.
I did not love it.
And so I was just like, all right. After being annoyed at the whole movie and I saw that, it made me laugh. So that's why I liked it.
Oh wait, you talking about the end scene, the end cutscene,
credit?
or the mid credit?
The mid credit. Sorry.
Mid credit pissed me off. It was
really
and not because it was so she just
it was a
appeared in the
throwaway.
room.
Yeah, it was a throwaway.
Like, are we spoiling or like are
Nah,
we talking out in the wild?
Yeah, we were
All right,
talking
cool.
about yeah.
So
You'll find it on
she
YouTube
just
tomorrow.
to me, I feel like the and I said this to Cam the day of. I felt like the better thing to do would have been, beeper stops transmitting. Banner goes over to another monitor, like, yo, there's something hurtling towards Earth with the same signature as the receive end of the beeper. And like, yo, oh crap, it's not hurtling towards Earth, it's hurtling towards Avengers headquarters.
Yeah.
They go outside, she does the superhero landing, massive explosion, she's coursing with energy, hair's, floating in the air, and then she goes, where's Fury? Cue Avengers theme, cut to black. See you when Endgame rolls out, and that's how you insert her into the Avengers
Fam,
world.
you,
And
you're
they
thinking
did
too
not
much.
do
No
that.
time. Endgame. Let's do the Endgame. Let's do it. Come on. No time.
But that could have taken the same amount of time.
Yeah.
That
No,
could have
you're
taken
right.
the exact same amount of time and had a much more as the lead into Endgame. That would have gotten me amped, regardless of whatever happened in the movie, whatever your opinion is of the movie. For me, the mid credit scene that leads into Endgame is supposed to get me charged.
Yeah.
So whoever's decision it was to just drop her in the room with them, to me,
like,
just
you're right, dude.
You sold.
It was like you said, it was an afterthought.
Yeah.
It felt like it.
Yeah, I think it was afterthought. It was something one of those things where I'm like, okay, Endgame's coming up. People kind of care about this, but we know they do because A, we purposely made the date on International Women's Day. B, we made it in March, which is Women's History Month, and so all these things are all on point. They know they're doing this for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, they did the same thing with Black Panther. Released it at the beginning of Black History Month. Yeah, I'm fine with all that.
Yeah,
I think they're props to the marketing department for picking both those release dates.
Super smart on that
it
respect,
works.
In that aspect. But yeah, I think one of those things is like that's again, it goes back to what I said from the beginning. It's just like everything was painfully obvious as opposed to actually having some type of like nuance to it. Just kind of like, Captain Marvel's here, yay, cool, let's go.
So one more negative nitpicky artist thing. The color palette for that movie was pretty bad.
Good point.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. That's definitely a good point.
Like there were moments where you really didn't know while they were fighting through corridors like what was going on because the lighting was so dim. Like I said, it's a nitpicky
I feel like that's a lot
of
films these days, though. That's my complaint with a lot because even like Titans, some of the corridor, like some of the tighter fight scenes in corridors or whatever. It's just cameras flipping around and you don't really, it's exactly what I just did with my hands. It's this.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden somebody's on the floor.
We've seen it reflected through like Doctor Strange and a few other of the Marvel movies where it's just, I don't know who's color grading this. It's not good.
Yeah. And I would go back to the other thing. The other negative part was just like, I thought the fight scenes were just like, ugh. It was on some Iron Fist level. It's just
I do not agree with that statement.
It's just like
you're talking about the fight, like the opening training fight between Jude Law and
that was the best part. That was the best fight.
Not even that. A better fight scene than that was when she was in the handcuffs. That shit was cool. When she had to fight out of there with her hands cuffed.
I do not. I'm gonna have to watch it again. Comparison.
I'm gonna have to watch that. I'm gonna watch that part again.
I do not. I rebuke your Iron Fist comparison.
I can't go there.
There can be only one.
Justify my level of hate. But all right, we had a good hour. I figured Carol would take us over for a lot.
Yeah.
Initially, we're gonna do a book review. We could probably do that later. It's not that big of a deal. But one of the things I do want to do is, let's get a couple final thoughts because I knew Captain Marvel was gonna take us a good chunk. Fellas, what you guys give me your final thoughts? We always end the podcast on whatever. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be whatever you want. We'll keep it in the comic book related situation. But final thoughts.
I can't talk about Odell Beckham Jr. getting traded. Is that
what
we're saying?
Nope, not this podcast.
Cameron. Fine.
Josh, what's your final word? Comic book related.
X-Men Forever Son. Now, I think the end of Captain Marvel kind of shook me a little bit. I'm like, yo, is Endgame gonna be shaky now? Because I'm scared. But overall, I got faith. The Russos have knocked everything that they've touched out of the park so far. Knock on my pressed wood desk. But yeah. I mean, all in all, could Captain Marvel have been better? Yes. I think that the things that tugged away from it have very little to nothing to do with Brie Larson's performance. I think most of it had to do with the substantive things that they surrounded her with that dragged down the movie.
Word. Cliff, what's your final word?
My final word. It doesn't have to necessarily be about Captain Marvel, right?
No, just comics related.
Okay. Well, initially, because of how the trailers were, I thought Shazam was just going to be okay. Maybe it's worth a look on a matinee. And then as like some other pictures and trailers came out, I was like, okay, this looks pretty decent. And then I'm hearing like the reviews are okay. So I'm interested to see if Captain Marvel ends up, or excuse me, Captain Marvel, Freudian Shazam.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there, buddy.
I'm interested to see if Shazam is actually number one, critically good, and then number two makes close to maybe at least like a Doctor Strange or maybe a little bit more than that. And if that's the case, it'll go over that. But yeah, I think it's a good chance that it will. If the word and it makes enough money, can that be a turnaround for DC? Can they build off of Aquaman making $1 billion, Wonder Woman, and hopefully a successful Shazam to right the ship, or is this just an anomaly in DC continually making crap?
I think they'll knock it out the park. That's a valid statement.
Yeah, that's positive. I think my final word is gonna say I think that Captain Marvel is equivalent of Aquaman, and I say that in a way not to be dismissive, but just saying that it set, you knew exactly what you're getting, and it was almost overly that. And I think Aquaman was entertaining. Captain Marvel was entertaining. But each character, or both characters, that aren't necessarily super strong in the books. Except for, actually, I'll pivot. Aquaman of lately, maybe this last year run, is actually a really, really good book. It's really hard. It's random to suggest that, but it actually is a really solid book. But I think both of them were so-so characters in the comics, and they really tried to painfully tell you that this character is cool. And Aquaman, again, entertaining, whatever, but like they were just like hitting you over the head, like, yo, this guy's cool. Look at his hair. Look at his tattoos. Look what he does. And then like in Captain Marvel, I got the exact same. Hey, she's cool. She can fly. She can shoot stuff with the fist. She can fly. She can shoot stuff with her fist. Like, it was like, dude, we know she's cool. So like, let's keep it moving, you know? So I think for DC, just on I think the Shazam level, I think they finally kind of got it that they want to be different than Marvel in terms of being a little bit more darker and having a more theme set by Nolan the God. But I think now they're starting to understand that not everything has to be that aspect of it. And so I think Aquaman was their first test to be like, you know what? Let's just make something fun. And it worked. Shazam, same level, because literally Shazam is a 12-year-old Superman. That's what the character is.
It's true.
And so if you get away from that, it doesn't make sense. So now I think this will work in terms of that aspect of it. And so now I am curious. I'm more curious to see what Gunn does with Suicide Squad. And I think that that'll be really, really interesting, because for someone that took a bunch of misfit, nobody characters that no one cared about to literally a multi-billion-dollar franchise, and now you just gave him the keys to Suicide Squad, which is literally the same thing. Like, he could do this in his sleep, and so like you're just like, oh, can you possibly do the same thing with Suicide Squad? It's like, come on, man. So I think DC's in a good place. I think it's going to be more on Marvel to kind of keep that pace and keep the same energy, where DC is the quote unquote they're playing behind the 8 ball. But then now if they do something like I said, Aquaman, not good, but it was entertaining, so everyone was like, Aquaman was great.
I am very curious to see whether or not Gunn goes for like a firm middle finger, like, oh, you thought Guardians was dope. Wait till you see what I do with Suicide Squad.
And honestly, he is well within his rights to do it. Yeah, I honestly hope he goes ham. Honestly, I think like the way he got done with the Marvel was really whack, and it was 100% all of a sudden from the top. This was not like a calculated thing. So But yeah, man, that shit was I think that was good. Well, fellas, good podcast. Thanks for everybody for coming out, and we are out. Peace.
Deuces.